Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome back to another film theory reaction. And today's is a theory I didn't think we were going to get, or at least I didn't know we were going to get. Today's is, what is Disney's body count, part 4? So, I know they've done several movies, like traditional Disney movies, where, like, whether it's like Mulan, Little Mermaid, Cinderella, you know, all those movies about, like, you know, body counts throughout the movies. I can't remember. I think obviously Mulan would have been, like, at least in the lead, but I thought that series was over. I thought they had done all of the classic Disney movies. Apparently I was wrong, or I just, you know, didn't remember the ones they were missing. So yeah, definitely going to see, you know, which movies they still have. I mean, I'm looking at the first frame of the video here, and it's Elsa from Frozen. So, I mean, given what I have seen of the ice magic in there, I mean, I'd imagine a lot of people died of, of an unseasonably cold summer. Let's just say. And, I mean, I haven't seen the sequel, so I have no idea what kind of weirdness happens in that one, besides the fact that she lets down her hair and doesn't have it in a braid. So, yeah, I mean, definitely going to be interesting to see, you know, which, you know, other Disney movies have a high body count. So, yeah, we should probably get this thing started. So, yeah, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video will lead to my game theory reaction. And if you like this video or any other video that I make, I'd very much appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to my channel, because my main goal for this year is to hopefully hit 5,000 subscribers. And at the current rate I'm going, that is totally doable thanks to every single one of you that thinks my channel is worth subscribing to. Yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Disney is deadlier than you think. Yeah, if you count up all of the deaths across their entire film canon, it's way higher than you expect. There's almost too many deaths to keep track of, but someone's gotta do it.
Wait, so instead of just doing one movie, they're just going to do a complete total from all of them. Okay. Oh, wait, does that... I hope they're only doing the, like, Disney princess, you know, Disney movies, because if you start including Marvel into that, yeah, that starts to go a little nuts.
Hello Internet, welcome to Film Theory, the show that's been ruining your childhood for over 10 years. Yeah, in case you missed it, this June is the 10-year anniversary of Film Theory. We have something really cool planned for later in the year that we just couldn't quite get done in time, so keep your eye out for that. But in the meantime, I wanted to take a look back at one of the most popular videos we've ever done on the channel, our Disney Death Count series. Yeah, in case you haven't seen these, Matt and the team wanted to do a theory figuring out which Disney movie was the deadliest, and it turned into a much bigger project than they were expecting, spanning over an hour of content across 3 videos. They really killed it in that series, pun intended, and believe me, I know for a fact that it was a lot of work. And their conclusion? Disney's dinosaur took home the most kills, with at least 300,005 deaths, mostly because of the lemurs killed on Lemur Island when it went up in flames.
Geez, okay, yeah, it has been a long time since I saw those videos. I did not remember. I mean, obviously, like, you know, I kind of forgot that, you know, Dinosaurs was a movie.
Honestly, I always thought that was hilarious, because this is likely the only award that Disney's dinosaur is ever going to get. But also,
Probably.
It made me wonder, surely that can't be right? Surely something else could win here, especially as more movies have come out and we've seen big films with big conflicts in them. We're talking Raya, Frozen 2, Strange World. Surely something can beat Dinosaur, and I want to see if that's the case. But, well, here's the thing. Let me just say that I thought that this was going to be a fun, quick, simple video. Let's just count up the deaths in the new movies and do a part 4 to see if Dinosaur can be driven to extinction. But, well, you know how sometimes you go back and rewatch stuff and notice something completely new and different? Well, when the team and I jumped back in to watch all of the Disney movies for our Disney timeline theory last year,
God, yeah.
Go check that out, by the way.
I also did a reaction to that, and honestly, it was really good just because it was something different other than the Pixar timeline. I've made it no secret in the past, I am so tired of the Pixar timeline, which thankfully you don't hear about that often anymore, but I was so happy for something a little different.
we noticed a lot of new stuff. Stuff that I know Matt didn't cover in the previous videos. So yeah, a good portion of this video is gonna be me pulling my best YouTube commenter impression, pushing up my glasses and saying, actually. Just saying, if we're doing this, we're doing it right, we gotta be thorough. So, which Disney movie is actually the deadliest? Grab your popcorn and watch along, loyal theorists. This is gonna be a long one. So in case you don't remember, and I mean fair, it's been like 6 years since we did those old videos, here are the rules we laid out for this challenge. Rule number 1, we're only counting deaths of sentient beings because things get weird otherwise. Like, there are plenty of animals in the Disney canon, and they are not all created equally. Some rabbits are just rabbits, some dogs are just dogs, and yet, in other places, they are clearly thinking, feeling beings who can communicate those thoughts and feelings. So, for our purposes today, we're drawing the line here. If an animal can speak, or if they act as intentionally driven characters, they count for this theory.
Okay, wait a second. There is... Actually, wait a second. I was going to say, I think you need to update that, because sentient is, I think, classified as any animal or anything that, like, is conscious and alive, while sapient is, like, intelligent and stuff like that. Where, you know, the example I remember was, you know, like, basically every animal is sentient because, you know, you hurt them and they realize and they, you know, they hate you afterwards for it. But only us humans are sapient. But now that I'm saying it out loud, I probably should double check that just to make sure I'm correct. Okay, sentience means the ability to feel things, the ability to perceive things. Any living thing that has some degree of consciousness is sentient, including things like lizards, insects, dogs, dolphins, human beings. The word sentience derives from the Latin word sentinem, which means feeling. Sapience means ability to think, capacity for intelligence, the ability to acquire wisdom. The scientific word for modern human man is Homo sapiens. Sapiens only describes living things that is able to think. The word sapiens is derived from Latin septina, which means intelligence or discernment. There you go. I was actually right. The old noggin hasn't let me down yet.
If they don't, they don't. Oh, and just real quick, but for my science nerds out there, sentient might be the wrong word here. Sentient applies to the ability to experience feelings and sensations, while sapient refers to the ability to be conscious and self-aware, forming thoughts and communicating feelings. But that's word nerd stuff, so we're just gonna move on. Rule...
Okay, I see how it is. I'll take my leave.
Number 2, we will only count deaths that actually happen during the time frame of the movie. Nothing that happens before or after the runtime will count. And rule number 3, we will only count kills caused by the characters or events in the movies. This is mainly to avoid counting all of the people who should have died during the runtime of a movie outside of the events of the film from, like, natural causes.
Yeah, so I guess that would kind of skew numbers if you counted, like, how many people die a second in the world? Just...
No, just like regular people on the other side of the world dying from like old age or whatever. This also means that we have to exclude stuff like all of the people who would have died from the Noah's Ark sequence from Fantasia 2000, since the short only followed the living things that get on that boat. Well, except for the dragon, unicorn, and griffin all laughing up a storm, they definitely didn't survive. Oof, we'll need to add those 3 bozos to the tally. Also, a small but important one here, rule number 4, we won't be counting any deaths that are undone. So if a character does die but is somehow revived through Disney magic, they're off the table. All that being said, we do need to change one of the old rules slightly here. See, back during that original trilogy of theories, we didn't count the sequels or spin-offs to these movies. This was mostly so we wouldn't need to count or watch most of the old straight-to-DVD sequels like Cinderella 2 or The Lion King 1.5, or TV spin-offs like Aladdin and Tangled and the like. Basically, we wanted to avoid something really disappointing like Bambi 3 winning because of something stupid that happened in those movies. But this did...
Was there a Bambi 3? Actually, I know there was they made a lot of movie sequels, like straight to DVD and VHS sequels. I remember, at least from what I've heard, I think Cinderella 3 was actually pretty good, but did they actually make any sequels to Bambi? No, wait, I think they did actually. I think it was a prequel, or was it a sequel? No, wait. Okay, wait, it's coming back to me now. I think, if I remember correctly, it actually took place during the point in time where Bambi basically went to live with his dad after his mom died, and that was kind of the events of that movie. So Bambi 2, it was kind of an in-between cool, like Lion King 1.5.
end up taking two main Disney films out of contention, The Rescuers Down Under and Ralph Breaks the Internet. For the most part, this didn't really impact much of anything because there weren't a ton of these sequels from Disney's main studio, but from 2018 to 2027, half of the Disney film lineup is sequels. We're talking Frozen 2, Zootopia 2, Moana 2, Frozen 3, and with original movies like Raya.
Wait, I knew about Zootopia 2. They're making a Frozen 3?
In The Last Dragon, Strange World, and Wish bombing, we might just need to accept that sequels are going to be a big part of Disney's output moving forward. So, as a compromise here, we're only going to be counting films made by Walt Disney Animation Studios.
No Pixar
That's Disney's main animation company and covers what is known as the Disney canon. This will let us count all of Disney's main movies while ignoring all of those sequels and spin-offs that are of a much lower quality, thank God. So, with all of that said, first things first, we need to double-check all of the previous work because there are some corrections we have to make. We previously calculated that there were a total of 344,031 deaths throughout all of Disney's canon, but there are a few issues with that number. Mainly that the numbers that we add up don't actually add up to that number. Hey man, math's hard and we've all made typos. It happens. For example,
only human.
We mentioned that there were 41 deaths across all of the films we talked about in part 1, despite listing 54 specific deaths at that point. It's a small error, it happens, but I want to make sure that we get you the most accurate number possible here. So to make sure of that, we did what any good theorist would. We made a spreadsheet. So,
honestly, I'm more surprised that Matt didn't have one himself, like, for something like that. I mean, there's a lot of math, a lot of numbers. I mean, MatPat was, generally very, very studious, at least from what I've seen. So the fact he didn't create a spreadsheet for something like this? Okay, wow. I mean, time crunches, am I right?
What exactly do we need to clarify here? Well, first up, we mistakenly counted Marshmallow's death in Frozen, but totally overlooked the after-credits scene where Marshmallow is shown alive and well. He also shows up in Frozen 2 just to further bring that point home. So we're gonna have to subtract one death from that previous total, going from 33 to 32. We're also going to throw in those 3 laughing mythological creatures from Fantasia 2000 that I mentioned earlier, since they did not have the last laugh when the flood came. Last year's Moana 2 also showed that the Kakamora survived their skirmish with Moana and Maui, and we know that these are the same Kakamora because they have the same leader. So we'll need to subtract 260 deaths there too. In Treasure Planet, we thought that all of the patrons in the destroyed inn from the beginning were also part of the body count, but most of them then showed up again in the last few minutes of the movie, so we're gonna assume that all of them survived, bringing that total to just 1,008. And in Brother Bear, we had no issue counting up the amount of fish eaten, but somehow forgot to count the main character's brother and Coda's mama bear. Oops. And just to show that we really dotted our I's and crossed all of our T's here, I want to mention all of the big movies that we didn't call out last time. First up, the Aristocats, Bolt, Lilo and Stitch, the original Fantasia, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, and Meet the Robinsons all have 0 deaths in them. And just to nip this in the bud, Ichabod's fate is a bit ambiguous, but we don't see a body, so we're not going to count that one there. As for low death movies, well, there's Beauty and the Beast, which sees Gaston fall to his death. The thief Jafar sends into the Cave of Wonders, and Aladdin also bites it, or I guess gets bitten. Kocoum gets shot in Pocahontas, Tadashi gets blown up in Big Hero 6, and Cinderella's father passes away at the very start of that film. Todd's mother from The Fox and the Hound gets shot off screen Bambi's mother style, while the bear takes a nasty tumble that likely kills him. Woodland animals are sapient in this movie, so both of those count. This movie also gets the award for the saddest letting a pet go for its own good scene in literally any movie I've ever seen. I cry every time, man.
Honestly, I remember, we never owned that movie ourselves. Though I remember at the time when I was a little kid, it was one of the movies that was at my grandparents' house. So whenever we went over and we were there for a long time, my parents would talk with the grandparents and stuff like that, and I would, put in, the VHS of one of the movies they had. And that was one of the movies I watched a couple times there. And when I was a little kid, I never understood why she let the fox go, especially when he didn't want to leave.
We briefly mentioned Melody Time in our very first video and how Little Toot caused a pretty nasty accident when he crashed a ship into New York City. That actually didn't cause any deaths. If it had, the flags we see later in the movie would have been at half-mast to mourn the loss of life. But there were other deaths that we didn't count, including Johnny Appleseed, who passes away from old age, and Pecos Bill's girlfriend, who gets blasted to the moon. So that's 2 right there. I was also a bit surprised that we
Was she actually killed, or was that just cartoon flying to the moon there?
Over the Black Cauldron in our previous videos because it's widely seen as Disney's darkest movie. Surely it has a ton of kills, right? Well,
no, I don't think it does.
Yeah, it has a lot of dead things, but not a whole lot actually dies during the runtime of the movie. The army of the dead do take out 2 randos, and the Horned King falls victim to the Cauldron's power, but that's about it. Gollum ripoff Gurgi does die in the Cauldron too, but
he comes back,
to life at the very end of the movie. So the Black Cauldron only adds 3 to the total tally. Now here's where I think the death count is really gonna surprise you. The Princess and the Frog. Yeah,
wait,
what
really?
might seem like a pretty lighthearted princess fare on the outside is actually a pretty dark story when you really break it down. Like Rabe, the lovable firefly, gets crushed by Dr. Facilier. That crunching sound is just so nasty. Hey man, at least Ray gets turned into a star in the afterlife. Dr. Facilier also meets his own terrible fate when the voodoo forces come to collect what they're owed.
As you
and
do.
We're gonna count his death as 2 deaths though, because his shadow appears to be an independent sapient being that shares the villain's fate. And since we're counting living shadows, we gotta add the 4 shadow creatures that Mama Odie vanquishes, and then the 4 that Ray takes out, bringing this film's total to 11.
The numbers.
Interesting, and most of those things aren't even like organic beings. That's strange. Okay.
Let's all go to 11.
The Emperor's New Groove is also surprisingly deadly when you sit and think about it. How so? Well, first off, there are 6 guards that get turned into animals by Yzma's potions, 5 of which met their untimely end when they jumped down a drain in pursuit of Cusco and Pacha.
Come on, man! Nobody lives forever!
I think the one guard that asked to go home made the right choice here. As for the 6th death, well, there's a bug that gets eaten by a spider earlier in the movie. Now you might be thinking, hold up, that's just a bug,
but it says help me
here. We're counting sentient beings who can feel and communicate, and listen to this, the bug calls out for help. Also, side note really quick, but the only animals we see speak in this movie have been transformed by Yzma's potions, so I think that this poor insect might be one of Yzma's victims. And
you know, granted, it's been a while since I saw that movie, but I had never even thought of that before. Jeez, okay, that sucks.
And then there's Tarzan, which starts stacking these bodies early on in the runtime. Like literally the first scene, which shows a ship burning and sinking at the same time. For a ship of this type, the crew probably would have been about 30 people, which is an interesting coincidence because it's also the same number that was on the ship carrying the frozen parents. Anyway, but we can't count these based on our rules. Yeah, by the time the movie
we didn't see them,
starts, everyone else on board appears to already be dead, since Tarzan and his family are escaping alone and not trying to help anyone else at all. So yeah, if Tarzan had started just 20 minutes earlier, we'd have a lot more deaths to log, but these casualties aren't technically in the runtime, so we can't. But cheer up, because there are still more to cover. The leopard Sabor kills Kerchak and Kala's baby gorilla and Tarzan's parents. Tarzan kills Sabor, Clayton kills Kerchak, and then hangs himself in what might be one of the most brutal Disney deaths ever. Man, this movie was not playing around. Also with 6 kills total. So
honestly, again, I remember like last week, this one clip from Tarzan was kind of doing the rounds on Twitter, and people were like, a kind of good point was brought up that we're never really going to see something like this happen in a Disney movie again. Like Disney movies just as a brand are just too scrubbed clean at this point.
So that brings the accurate death count from the prior 3 episodes of this series to 345,115, just based on all the films we've assigned concrete numbers to. And just let me say that, man, I can see why Matt always said that this series of episodes was so complicated to research. But I still think that we can find something that will beat Dinosaur. So let's hop into the new movies and see what we got. First,
okay, well, I mean, just going back to the movies that need to be done here. So actually, I haven't seen any of these movies, so I'm not really sure, but does anyone die in Encanto? Because I don't think so. I mean, I know the reason they go and find the house, I'm forgetting what it's called now, is because they were escaping a civil war, but I don't know, again, that might be that rule where it doesn't count because none of it happened on screen or something. Beyond a Strange World, That I don't know. I think from what I've seen, the cast is pretty small on that one, so I don't think there'd be that many deaths. Wish? No idea, honestly. Raya? I mean, I know people get turned to stone in that one. Would that count? And then there's Moana 2, which again, haven't seen Moana 2, so I have no idea how the plot on that one works out.
First up, Wish, which had 0 kills except for the movie's chances at the box office. Oh, and since we're now counting sequels, let's also get this one out of the way really quick. We see one death with the poacher that gets poached in The Rescuers Down Under. We also see the pilot in Strange World get killed, but he's the only one in that movie.
Oh, there was a
Encanto,
death, okay.
There's a flashback of Mirabel's grandfather getting killed. This movie also has Casa Madrigal getting destroyed, which is indeed a sentient being and part of the Madrigal family, but the town then put it back together in the final sequence, bringing the house back to life. So only one death there too. Next up, and the most recent movie so far, Moana 2. Yeah, this movie caused us to go back and change all of the Kakamora deaths from the first movie, significantly reducing the number of kills in that film. But what about the new deaths in this movie? Well, we see the deaths of Moana's ancestor and his crew in a flashback, and Moana herself also dies, but then comes back as a demigod, so that doesn't count. All in all, that just adds another 3 deaths here. Oh, okay. So what about Raya and the Last Dragon? I actually have a lot of hope for this one to have a huge death
the dragons,
count,
right.
which is an incredibly weird thing to say out loud, but regardless, think about it. If you didn't end up seeing this one, and you probably didn't considering the box office on this one, COVID was brutal. The conflict in Raya centered around an evil force known as the Droon terrorizing the land of Kumundra. They petrify every living creature they touch, human, dragon, or otherwise, into stone, and we see a ton of people get stonified here while there's a bunch of fighting in between. Surely there's a ton of death and destruction here, right? Well, not so. See, at the end of the movie, all of the stone transformations are reversed, basically unkilling everybody that the Droon killed.
Jeez, okay, again, I don't know the time scale of that movie, but can you imagine somebody who did that and, like... Actually, let me look that up. What was the time scale of Raya? Because again, that's one of those movies I just never saw. 500 years! Yeah, okay. So yeah, if you got turned to stone and you were woken up 500 years later, oh, that's brutal. Oh.
Even all of the dragons that have been stoned for centuries are released. So, despite all of its violent battles, this dragon movie turned out to be quite toothless, with 0 deaths. Okay, I'm getting a little nervous that nothing's gonna rival Dinosaur here. Maybe we can find some hope in Frozen 2? I mean, a violent battle broke out between Arendelle and Northuldra, right? Well, sure, but the forces of nature intervened right away to shut that fighting down, but not before these 2 guys take a tumble off the side of a cliff. I'm also gonna say that the right-hand man of Elsa and Anna's grandfather also died in this battle, because if he'd survived, he could have told someone about the grandfather's evil scheme and that the dam he built was the reason that nature sealed off the forest. Elsa also briefly dies, taking Olaf, Marshmallow, and all of her other creations with her, but this is temporary and they're all brought back by the post-credits scene, which we did watch this time.
We live!
So, that's just 3 total for Frozen 2. Man, so far, most of these films had a smaller death count than I was expecting, like especially with Raya. I thought for sure we'd have something to rival Dinosaur, and well, there is one movie that does rival it.
What?
It actually completely overshadows it, believe it or not. Yeah, the deadliest movie Disney's ever released. Drumroll, please! Ralph Breaks the Internet.
I mean, I knew that movie sucked. But does it really have the highest body count? I mean, granted, it's one of those movies I haven't seen the entirety of because I couldn't stomach it. No, I mean, granted, it's been a while since I saw it, but I can't think of anything that would have given it a body count.
Wait, really? Yeah, I know. I was surprised too, but this is legit. So, how does this one possibly rack up so many deaths? Well, it's all thanks to this right here. Yeah, during
the Ralphs. They're counting the Ralphs. Oh, okay.
In the course of this movie, Ralph is cloned several times, with the group becoming a literal embodiment of Ralph's insecurities that rampages through the web. But wait, are we really going to be counting clones for this here? For real? And yeah, I know that might be controversial, but the answer is yes. When you really look at it, they fulfill all of the criteria we laid out for them to be sentient or sapient. They have thoughts and feelings. They can communicate and understand things.
Friend?
And in fact, when the Ralphs combine into their giant Ralphzilla form, the protagonists are only able to stop it by talking things out, appealing to their humanity, their sentience. They check all of the boxes to count, so if you have a problem with this, don't take it up with me. I didn't make the rules. Anyway, Ralph is ultimately able to calm his clones down, telling them that everything will be okay and convincing them to let go of their insecurities. However, because each of these clones are made up entirely of Ralph's insecurities, by letting them go, they fade away. In the movie itself, this represents Ralph's emotional issues being resolved, but for our purposes today, oh my god, they're all dead! They literally disappear out of existence because they let go of the only thing keeping them together, and that's surprisingly dark when you really sit down and think about it. But okay, down to brass tacks. The real question here is exactly how many Ralph clones make up Ralphzilla here? Well, at first I hoped that we might be able to do some math to figure it out. After all, Ralph's canon height is 9 feet tall, so we could theoretically do some pixel measurements here to get a rough estimate. But
yeah, I mean, but then you'd also have to count, like, how tightly packed they are, and just the volume of the Ralphzilla as well. Yeah, I can imagine, I just trying to picture it, I can already imagine that getting really complicated.
But fortunately for us, we don't have to. In fact, we have an official number. In an interview, the film's effects lead explained just how many Ralphs they needed to make up Ralphzilla and said that it took 550,000 Ralphs. Yeah, 550,000! That means that when they all faded away, we have to add another 550,000 deaths to our total tally. And believe it or not, that single-handedly makes Ralph Breaks the Internet the deadliest Disney film.
Okay, so I mean, man, what is it with the bad movies having the highest kill counts? You had Dinosaurs, Ralph Breaks the Internet. I guess that means we have, a good way of telling if a movie's going to be bad is just how many people die in it.
King Dinosaur off the only pedestal it's ever been put on. So with all of that in mind, tallying all of these deaths together, Disney's total death count now sits at, another drumroll please, 895,123. Almost 900,000 souls lost for our entertainment at the happiest place on earth. And I gotta say, something that really stuck out to me while rewatching all of these movies, despite Disney cranking out movies for nearly 90 years, it seems like 99% of the deaths all came from movies that came out in the last 30 years or so. Why? Well, the scope of Disney's films just continue to grow and grow. Gone are the days where a simple fairy tale would suffice. A princess in the woods hanging out with talking animals and tricking evil witches and all of that stuff. Now we're seeing gods fight titans, civilizations sink, the entire internet being put at risk, and things are only going to be getting bigger and bigger. Honestly, it's a question of when, not if, Disney's death count is going to top a million. You best believe that we'll be here to count it when it does. But until then, remember that it's all just a theory. A film theory. And cut. Up next on...
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, the fact... I mean, I still remember when film theory first started. Like, I remember, like, when they first announced it, they had, like, the 3 first videos already uploaded and you can watch them and stuff like that. And I remember really liking it. But the fact... Again, like, thinking about the number of deaths, and again, Ralph Breaks the Internet... I do not like that movie. That's one of those movies I hate because it just kind of ruins the first movie retroactively, and I loved Wreck-It Ralph. It's honestly like one of my favorite Disney movies, honestly. But yeah, definitely gonna have to see what mass atrocities happen in, future Disney movies. Oh god. Oh yeah, but that's definitely gonna be it for now. So yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.